today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female.
I think that what Trump does really well is he actually listens to the concerns of the American people. Polling for years indicated that the majority of Americans were concerned about inflation, concerned about undocumented immigration. And while the Democrats tend to think that this strategy of denying and pretending it doesn't happen or isn't happening is somehow a successful strategy, it clearly is not.
Take a president of the United States, I'm going to say this one more time, through a criminal court for the first time ever that it's ever happened. And the reason you do it is because he may or may not have had a one-night stand with a porn star nearly 20 years ago and shuffled a bit of paper about it. It's a humiliating day for not just him and his family, but for America, for the American justice system, for the American presidential system. It was an absolute joke.
For today, right? Waiting for Donald Trump to get sworn in. But they went after me too. They went after my family too. This DOJ wanted to crush any opposition that they had because they were so terrified of Donald Trump being as popular as they knew that he was. And the moment that we all witnessed today, Donald Trump becoming president again. The fact
Ana Kasparian appeared on Piers Morgan Uncensored and didn't hold back, taking on both a woke panel and the broader leftist movement right to their faces. In a fiery exchange, she called out the excesses of the progressive left, exposing their contradictions and failures in real time. While some question whether her shift away from mainstream leftist ideology is genuine, Ana Kasparian has consistently voiced frustrations with the Democratic establishment and progressive hypocrisy. Unlike her Young Turks co-host, Cenk Uygur, whose motives are often debated, Ana Kasparian's criticisms appear more sincere, reflecting a real shift in her views. Watch the clip and decide for yourself. Has Ana Kasparian truly distanced herself from the woke left, or is this just another media spectacle? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.
If you were being dispassionate about it and fair-minded, you would say, actually, Trump can be a pretty good guy. There's another side to him, which we all know, which can be more complicated. He trash talks people in a way that people don't like. He does stuff which winds people up, and so on and so on. And he has some policies which are awful, as all presidents do. How do you best describe him, Elizabeth, to people who don't really get him? You spend a lot of time around him. How do you see him?
There's a lot to unpack there. Number one, my apologies for the faces. My husband always says I don't have a poker face, and I guess that is coming out right now. Look, to start, I have spent quite a bit of time with Donald Trump. I think the best way to describe him is authentic, right? He's a real human being, and with that comes jokes you may not like. You may witness a few actions you don't like, but he's also real. He's honest. He tells the American people how he feels. He says it like it is, and despite what anyone thinks about him, the American people obviously disagree, right? Because he just became the president of the United States. So you can call him every name in the book, but millions of Americans obviously disagree and just decided he should be president of the United States. So I think that's where we can leave that. I think when it comes to claiming that Donald Trump is going to go after his political opponents, it's laughable considering what we just witnessed for the last few years, considering what I have seen on the sidelines happen to President Trump himself, happen to his family, who I know very well, happen to his staff, happen to people like me. I haven't talked about it. I've kept quiet waiting for today, right? Waiting for Donald Trump to get sworn in. But they went after me too. They went after my family too. This DOJ wanted to crush any opposition that they had because they were so terrified of Donald Trump being as popular as they knew that he was. And the moment that we all witnessed today, Donald Trump becoming president again. The fact is, he stood there, said he would not go after his political opponents, was sworn in today in front of a crowd of people, many of which not only hoped that he would spend the remainder of his life in prison, but worked to make that happen. And he said he was not going to do the same thing to anyone else. You can lie about it all you want. That is not what he said. And I cannot wait for him to prove everybody wrong and be the president the American people deserve for the next 4 years.
He couldn't have been clearer. And honestly, Joe, the irony of saying that this was all something that Trump's bears when he's literally been the victim of this for the last year in the most unprecedented manner. When you take a president of the United States, I'm going to say this one more time, through a criminal court for the first time ever that it's ever happened. And the reason you do it is because he may or may not have had a one-night stand with a porn star nearly 20 years ago and shuffled a bit of paper about it. It's a humiliating day for not just him and his family, but for America, for the American justice system, for the American presidential system. It was an absolute joke to drag Trump through a criminal court for such a pathetic and petty case like that. And if that had happened to a Democrat, by the way, you'd have all led the charge of how outrageous it was. Let me bring in Ana Kasparian on this. I mean, Ana, the sense I got watching Trump today is the sense I've got from speaking to him quite a lot in the last few months. I've had 5 or 6 conversations with him since he got shot. And I've definitely detected a man who is unbelievably grateful to be alive, that he genuinely understands that he came within half an inch of death, and very nearly it happened again a few weeks later in the golf course, which was another appalling failure by the Secret Service. So he feels that very strongly, and I think that would affect any human being, anyone. But secondly, he feels the hand of history. He hasn't got a campaign anymore. All he's got left now is to deliver on his big promises, and if he does that, to leave a legacy as potentially one of the great American presidents.
If you're finding this breakdown interesting and want to see more content like this, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Your support really helps me bring more discussions like this to the channel. Let's get back to the video.
I mean, I hope your interpretation is correct. I mean, obviously, being the target of an assassination not once but twice is a traumatic situation to experience, and maybe it changed him to some extent. But I do want to just quickly go back to the points made in regard to the investigations. I really hope that Trump doesn't waste his time in his last term focusing on retaliation against his political opponents. So we're going to have to wait and see about that. I largely agree in regard to Alvin Bragg's prosecution of Donald Trump as it pertains to, his extramarital affairs with adult actresses. I like that you're giving him the benefit of the doubt, but don't be a cheeky little devil, you. Okay, you know that he had an affair. That's why the hush money payments were paid. But I think that investigation and prosecution really paled in comparison to the classified documents case and the attempt to overturn the 2020 presidential election. I think the timing of the prosecution by Democrats in those two cases were very much political, and that led to empathy toward Donald Trump and actually helped him garner more support for this election. But in regard to his speech, I think that what Trump does really well is he actually listens to the concerns of the American people. Polling for years indicated that the majority of Americans were concerned about inflation, concerned about undocumented immigration. And while the Democrats tend to think that this strategy of denying and pretending it doesn't happen or isn't happening is somehow a successful strategy, it clearly is not. He pays attention to what people are concerned about, and he speaks to those issues. And I really hope that this is a teachable moment for the Democratic Party. So far, I've seen them refuse to take any personal responsibility for their failures and foibles.
I don't think they've learned, honestly.
Cycle.
Yeah, honestly, and I don't see any evidence so far that Democrats have learned a damn thing. I really don't. I've been seeing some of the stuff you've been saying, which is the right way to go. And Cenk Uygur as well has been saying similar stuff, which is, look, you have to recognize what's happened here. And you have to understand American people just did not buy into anything that were being sold by the Democrats. In fact, they just moved in big numbers from all demographic groups to Donald Trump. You have to start. Billy, I want to play a clip. This is about Trump talking about DEI and sort of wokeism and the gender debate and so on. Let's take a listen to this.
This week, I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life. We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based. As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female.
Billy, I can imagine a lot of cheering around America when they heard that. Just a bit of clarity on such an absurd debate. When we got to a stage where you had the President of the United States and his Vice President, Biden and Harris, both endorsing the obviously grotesquely unfair scenario of biological males who identify as trans women competing in women's sport and then beginning to dominate women's sport in a way they never did when they competed against men. And that alone, as someone like me, who's basically more liberal than not, pretty much a centrist, but it was so ridiculously absurd to endorse such a ridiculous policy.
It's no surprise that the modern left is losing voices like Ana Kasparian, Russell Brand, Joe Rogan, and even Piers Morgan, figures who once identified with traditional leftist values but are now being pushed out for simply applying common sense. The progressive movement has drifted so far that anyone questioning its extremes is quickly alienated. Kasparian's growing criticism of the woke left is another sign of this shift. Her willingness to challenge the movement, this time on Piers Morgan Uncensored, shows just how disconnected the left has become from everyday people. Whether they listen to her or not remains to be seen, but if they did, it could change the political landscape in a major way. What do you think? Is Ana Kasparian's criticism a wake-up call for the left, or is it too little too late? Drop your thoughts in the comments.